So I'm on my way to Fredericksburg this morning, about 60 miles north of San Antonio. Going to check on my 1968 Triumph Bonneville that we're restoring. But I have some things I want to talk about this morning. I'm really excited. Over the last couple of weeks, I've actually gotten some comments on my motovlog, and boy, that really thrills me. It's like I'm validated now. You know, I got my ticket punched because there's somebody out there listening. And one of the interesting comments I got, of course, was from one of my family subscribers, but that's okay. It's my son-in-law, wrote a long comment, and he asked me to talk about some stuff. And boy, he had a long list. I can't even begin to remember all the things he said, except I do remember one of them. He said, "Why don't you talk about how life was different when you were a young man?" And wow, I read that and I thought, you're really getting old when somebody says, "So what was it like when you were a young man?" But that's okay. I might talk about that. But he got me to thinking about some things, and also a couple of other thoughtful comments from some of my non-family subscribers. And thank you to, I hope I don't forget a couple of them, but there was Wheels Not Heels, which is a pretty cool little moto vlog, and then there's Sam Smith, who's also a very thoughtful moto vlogger. There's Arizona RE, who's left some nice comments. So thank you guys for watching my moto vlogs and helping me get started in this adventure. So I have something I want to talk about this morning that normally I don't get to talk about, because whenever I try to do it with people, their eyes start to glaze over and they look at their watch and they suddenly remember something they had to do. But I don't have to worry about that. I can just talk as long as I want to, and if somebody listens, that's great. If they don't, that's okay too. So here's the main thesis statement of my little moto vlog this morning. Happiness is the default state of mind. Just think about that. That's stuff I've learned, and that's what I want to talk about, is stuff I've learned. And one of the things I've learned through my reading and through my experience is that happiness is the default state of mind. When my youngest son was just learning to use computers, he used to get on my computer, and after he was done with it, I'd go back to the computer and all the settings would be changed. And I would just fuss at him. I'd say, "Patrick, what have you done to my computer?" He said, "Well, I made it better." He said, "It works better with those settings." I said, "No, it doesn't. I want it back the way I had it before." And so sometimes I would have to go in there and find that button that says reset to factory defaults. And what I've learned is that sometimes people are like that we need to learn how to reset ourselves to the factory defaults and find that happy place. When my granddaughter was born, I held her in my arms probably just an hour after she was born. And, there was nothing going on in there at that time. It was about as peaceful as it could be. She didn't care if I was black, white, brown, or yellow, or who I was. She didn't have any desires. She wanted nothing except her basic needs, food and comfort. But once those basic needs were satisfied, she was just a picture of tranquility. You look down at that little face, no wrinkles, no frowns, just as peaceful as it could be. And I know you've all experienced that as well. So for me, that's what that default state of mind means. And we've all heard that saying, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And everybody's probably like me. I've been pursuing happiness vigorously all my life. And it's frustrating because I can't seem to hang on to it. It's like chasing the butterfly. Every once in a while I get it, but then it goes away. Because one of the things I've learned in my life is that happiness is not out there. Happiness is really already in us. It's in that default state of mind. but it's been covered up by the programming of life and all the memories and bad mental habits that we form. So the challenge is to learn how to reset ourselves back to that default state of mind and find the happiness that's already there inside of us. See, for me, I always thought happiness was out there, and mainly happiness existed in stuff. If I could just get more stuff, I'd be happier. If I could get a better car, I'd be happier. And you know, that worked for a while because we've all experienced the thrill of getting a new car. Boy, there's very few feelings that are greater than that first day or two in that new car smell and showing it off to your friends, but it fades pretty quickly. Happiness is in a new house, it's in more money, it's all those things we desire, but it's not out there. Those things were always fickle for me, they never lasted. So if happiness is the default state of mind, I guess that brings up the question then, how can we reset ourselves to our default state? And you know, there's just tons of information on that, and I don't have time to go into it on that motovlog, but I want to share 5 ideas with you that I've learned through my practice and my reading that really do work. And they came from Dr. Martin Seligman, who wrote a book called Flourish, where he's identified 5 key elements that are necessary for not only happiness, but what he calls flourishing. And what I liked about this was these things were scientifically tested. They weren't just fluff from New Age self-help gurus. He was a psychiatrist, and he's tested these ideas with himself and his patients and his family. And so I read them, and I've tested them myself, and they've worked for me too, and I'd like to share them with you. And the easy way to remember them is the acronym PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. So here's what those letters mean. The P stands for positive emotions. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer, everybody would say. Of course, the more positive emotions we have, the happier we are. Well, the challenge is how do we find those positive emotions? Because life is sometimes very negative, and it's very easy to get to the end of the day and only think about all the bad stuff that's happened to us. Well, there was one exercise that I learned from him. It's called the 3 Good Things exercise, and it's deceptively simple. As a matter of fact, it's so simple that I discarded it at first because I said, that's just too simple. That couldn't possibly work. But here's the way it works, is at the end of the day, you just sit down and you either write or think about 3 good things that happened to you that day and why they happened. So I decided to try that, and here's what proved it for me. I was spending some time with my oldest son in New Mexico, and it was just a regular, routine, ordinary day. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. And I was sitting there watching TV, and my oldest granddaughter, Calliope, just walked over, and she crawled up in the chair beside me, and she snuggled up next to me. And she just said, "I love you, Popeye." That's what she calls me, Popeye. And that's about it. Then she got up, and then she went on about her way, and the day went on. At the end of the day, I'm doing my little inventory, thinking about my 3 good things that happened that day. Well, of course, that was one of the things that popped up. But what really was important to me was the second question. Why did that happen? And when I started to drill down and think about why that happened, I went back way before she was even born, when my oldest son and I had some, to put it mildly, challenges in our relationship that required me to do some really hard work to repair that, which I did. And I repaired the relationship, and he allowed me to repair it. And you know, if I hadn't done that hard work, I never would have experienced that moment. So going back and uncovering the why was very important. But that's a powerful little exercise. and it doesn't take long. Well, that's one of the things I've learned, is to look for the good things. Now, I've shared this idea with other people before, and like many people, they'll say, yeah, but nothing good ever happens to me. It kind of reminds me of an old joke I heard about two young kids who woke up on Christmas morning, and they went in and found the living room about 3 feet deep in horse manure. And one boy was furious. He just threw a tantrum. He said, how could they do this to us? This is disgusting. This is terrible. It ruined our whole Christmas. The other kid jumped right in the middle of it and started digging around in it. He said, what are you doing? He said, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere. And one of the things I've learned is that, there's a pony in there somewhere in just about every day. Something good has happened, and we can dig it out if we look hard enough. The E is for engagement. And what engagement means is being in flow. It's being in those moments when we are totally present in the moment and we lose all feeling of who we are or where we are. We're truly lost in what we're doing. Athletes experience this all the time. And I think that's one of the cool things about riding motorcycles, because when we're riding motorcycles, most of the time we're in flow. We're in flow because we have to be in the present moment most of the time. We can't spend a lot of time in the past or the future. We have to be right here, right now, paying attention to what we're doing. And the more engaged we are, the happier we're going to be. We look around at a lot of people doing their jobs every day, and it's obvious they're not engaged. They're not even present. So I look back over my life, and I think I've missed a lot of my life because I've either been in the past thinking about what's happened, or I've been in the future thinking about what's going to happen. And none of that has any connection to reality. The only thing that's real is what's happening right now. It's the present moment. The present moment is perfect. What spoils the present moment is just getting out of it. So that's one of the things I've learned, is to try to be more present. It's a challenge. The R is relationships. Again, a no-brainer. But the better our relationships are, the happier we are. While it may be a no-brainer, I've seen a lot of people who are pursuing their goals so vigorously that they don't take care of their relationships. And my wife is a master at taking care of relationships. She reminds me of how important it is to do those little things to stay connected and maintain those relationships. The M is for meaning. We need meaning and purpose in our life. I just came off of a 10-year job with a large company where I found it very difficult to find any meaning or purpose in what I was doing that was maybe bigger than myself. And that doesn't make for a happy day. I've learned that there are 4 big questions that we should ask ourselves, and they're not easy questions. But here's what they are. The first one is, who am I? Not name, rank, and serial number, but who am I? What is it that makes me the person I am? Second question is, why am I here? What is my purpose? What have I been put on this earth to do? The third question is, what are my values? What's important to me? What do I believe in? And the last question is, what's non-negotiable in my life? And I think that you can tell when people have those 4 questions pretty well worked out in their mind, because There's a strength you see in them that sometimes you don't see in other people. So I think that has a lot to do with happiness, is figuring out those four questions. And finally, the A is for accomplishments. We need to have accomplishments in order to be happy, big ones and small ones. And I suspect that might be one of the reasons why older people or people who retire are sometimes unhappy, because they probably worked their entire life in a career where they did have accomplishments and they did do work that was purposeful and meaningful. And now they don't have those accomplishments anymore. Or if they do, maybe it's nothing more than improving their golf score, and sometimes they can't do that, or puttering around the garden. But accomplishments and meaning and purpose in life go together. So that's something that I've learned, that I try to practice. I don't always do it as well as I should, but I work on it. So remember PERMA. Create more positive emotions. Be more engaged. Find those moments of flow. Take care of your relationships. Find meaning and purpose in your life. And create accomplishments. And I think if we work on those 5 things constantly, we will be happier, and we'll probably even flourish in the process.